Kwon Seok-jin lay flat on the cold metallic table inside the alien medical bay. His head hurt. His body ached. He could feel the bruises all over his arms and legs, but it was his chest that hurt the most. The crash of their ship had been rough, and now Seok-jin was stuck on an unknown planet with no idea what to do next. Outside the window of the station, the world looked wild. Mountains stretched high into the sky, and thick clouds rolled across the horizon. It was a place Seok-jin had never seen before, and honestly, he wasn't sure he wanted to stay long enough to get to know it. Everything was strange. The air, the plants, even the stars in the sky were different. But the strangest thing of all was the alien healer standing over him. Her name was Ryu Jae-sun, and she was nothing like any human Seok-jin had ever met. She was tall, almost twice as tall as him, and her body was covered in shiny scales that shimmered in the light. The scales were a deep emerald green, with hints of purple running through them. She had 4 arms, long and powerful, and each one seemed to move with a strange, fluid grace. But it wasn't just her body that was unusual. It was the way she looked at him with huge violet eyes that seemed to see straight through him, as though she could read his every thought. Seok-jin had been nervous when she first approached him. He'd never seen anything like her before. But the more she helped him, the less afraid he became. She was gentle, and though her species looked intimidating, her actions were calm and steady. She worked quickly, but there was no rush in her movements, as if she had all the time in the universe. "You are injured," she said, her voice deep and calm. It had a strange, melodic quality to it, almost like the sound of distant thunder. "I will help you heal." Seok-jin nodded, unsure of what to say. His mind was still racing from the crash, and he couldn't think clearly. His body was tired. He closed his eyes for a moment, just trying to calm down. When he opened them again, Jae-sun was already at his side, her 4 arms moving with practiced skill. She took out a small vial from the belt around her waist and uncorked it. The liquid inside was a pale blue color, and it shimmered in the light. Without a word, she poured a small amount of it onto her fingers and began to gently rub it onto his injured arm. The moment her fingers touched his skin, Seok-jin felt a strange warmth spread through him, almost like a gentle fire. It didn't hurt at all, but it was powerful, and Seok-jin could feel the pain slowly start to fade away. Jae-sun moved with incredible precision, her eyes never leaving his injuries. She didn't speak much, only focusing on her work. Seok-jin could tell that she was experienced, that this was nothing new to her. He could feel his injuries healing, but he couldn't help but feel strange about the way she was doing it. She was a healer, yes, but there was something different about her methods. After a few moments, she paused. Seok-jin felt the heat from her touch slowly disappear, and his arm felt much better. He was still exhausted, but the pain had eased. Jae-sun stood back, her eyes scanning him for any other signs of injury. "You are healing well," she said, her voice soft. But then her gaze lingered on his face, her violet eyes narrowing slightly. "There is something else. Your body temperature is not normal. It is unusually high for someone in your condition." Seok-jin blinked, confused. "My temperature?" She nodded. "Yes, I need to check it." Before Seok-jin could respond, Jae-sun moved closer, and to his surprise, her long tongue darted out of her mouth. It was slick and shiny, like the rest of her, and it was covered with tiny scales. The tip of her tongue brushed lightly against the side of his neck. It wasn't painful, but it felt strange. The soft, smooth touch made Seok-jin stiffen a little, not sure what to make of it. Jae-sun didn't seem to notice his reaction. She held her tongue against his skin for several seconds, and Seok-jin could feel a strange warmth again. Only this time it seemed to come from her tongue itself. It was like her tongue was reading him in some way, checking for something deep inside him. He wasn't sure what was happening, but it made his heart race a little. After a moment, Jae-sun pulled back. She looked at him with her sharp, intelligent eyes. "Your temperature is high, but it is not dangerous. Your body is reacting to the stress of the crash. It will take time to fully recover." Seokjin wasn't sure how to respond. The whole thing felt so surreal. His mind was trying to process what had just happened. An alien healer using her tongue to check his temperature? It was bizarre, but he couldn't deny that it had worked. He felt better than he had in hours. "Is that normal for you?" he asked, his voice soft. Jae-sun tilted her head, considering his question. "Yes, for us it is." She paused, as if thinking. "Our species has a unique way of healing. We use our tongues to understand the body. It allows us to feel the temperature of the skin, the pulse of the blood, the rhythm of your energy. It is how we know what is wrong and how to fix it." Seokjin blinked, trying to process her words. "So your tongue can tell you all of that?" She nodded. "It is how we heal. Our bodies are designed to connect with others in this way." Seokjin wasn't sure how he felt about this. It was so strange, so alien. But at the same time, he couldn't deny the warmth he felt from Jae-sun's touch. Despite how unusual it was, her actions were kind, and she seemed genuinely interested in helping him. He could sense it in the way she moved, in the way she watched him as if she cared deeply about his well-being. "Thank you," he said quietly, still a little unsure of what had just happened. I don't know what I would have done without you." Jae-sun gave a small smile, her violet eyes softening. "It is my duty," she said. "You are not alone. We will get you through this." Seokjin wasn't sure what to say after that. He had never met anyone like Jae-sun before. He had heard stories about alien races, but nothing prepared him for this moment. Nothing prepared him for the kindness and warmth of this strange scaled healer. As she turned to gather more of her tools, Seokjin allowed himself a moment of quiet thought. There was something about her that made him feel safe, something that made him feel as though, no matter how strange or frightening the situation was, he wasn't completely alone. And for the first time since the crash, he felt a tiny spark of hope flicker in his chest. Kwon Seokjin lay back on the cold metal table, feeling both exhausted and confused. His body had healed, but his mind was still trying to catch up. It had been a few days since the crash, and Ryu Jae-sun, the alien healer, had been taking care of him. Despite all her help, Seokjin couldn't shake the strange feeling that something was very different about the way she treated his injuries. Her methods were unlike anything he had ever experienced. The more time he spent with her, the more questions he had. He couldn't understand why she kept using her tongue to check his body temperature, or why it felt so personal. But there was no denying that her methods worked. His wounds had healed quickly, and the pain had faded away. But now he was left wondering about the strange ways she treated him. Jae-sun had always been calm and gentle with him. She never seemed in a rush, taking her time with every action. Seokjin had noticed that she always looked at him with those deep violet eyes, like she was studying him, learning something about him that he couldn't understand. He didn't mind her caring attention, but each time she used her tongue, it felt like a little more than just a medical check. It felt intimate. It felt like she was doing something beyond healing him, something that went deeper than physical care. One afternoon, Seokjin sat up on the table, looking out the window at the strange landscape beyond the medical station. The alien world still felt so foreign to him. He was far from home, and everything seemed different. But despite everything, he had to admit that Jae-sun had done more than just heal his body. She had made him feel less alone. Her presence had brought him some comfort, though he still didn't fully understand it. Just then, the door to the room opened, and Jae-sun stepped inside. She moved silently, her forearms flowing smoothly as she entered the room. She didn't need to speak, her actions already telling Seokjin what was coming. The healer moved toward him, a small vial of the blue liquid in her hand. He recognized it immediately. It was the same liquid she had used to heal his injuries before. He still didn't understand what it was, but it worked, and that was enough for him. Seokjin. Jae-sun's voice was calm, like a soft whisper of wind. "You are recovering well. But I must check your temperature again. Your body is still adjusting to the changes. Seok-jin nodded, though his thoughts were far from certain. He didn't want to seem ungrateful, but there was a small part of him that felt uncomfortable. Every time she used her tongue to check his temperature, it felt like something more than just a medical procedure. But he didn't want to question her. After all, she was the one keeping him alive. She was the one who had saved him. Okay, he said, trying to sound normal. Jae-sun gave a small nod of understanding. She didn't say anything more as she moved closer to him. Seok-jin could feel the tension in his body, unsure of what to expect. But he didn't pull away. He trusted her, even if he didn't fully understand why she was doing what she was doing. Jae-sun's tongue, as usual, flicked out from her mouth. It was a strange thing to watch. Seok-jin still couldn't get used to how it looked, how it moved. It was smooth and quick, almost like a serpent's tongue, but much more beautiful and graceful. He flinched slightly when it touched his skin, but the warmth it brought him quickly made him relax. He didn't know how it worked, but he knew that every time Jason's tongue made contact, he felt the heat in his body settle. Her tongue moved over his neck, his chest, and his arms, pausing in different spots as she read his body. Seok-jin felt his pulse quicken under the touch, not because of any discomfort, but because of how strange it felt. It wasn't painful. It wasn't even uncomfortable. It was just unexpected. The soft flicks of her tongue seemed to penetrate his skin, as if she were reading something deeper within him, something beyond just his body. Jae-sun's eyes were focused on him the entire time, her violet gaze sharp and intent. Seok-jin felt a sense of calmness wash over him as she worked, but there was still something about the situation that made him uneasy. He had never been in a situation like this before. In his world, healers used instruments, tools, and medicines. They didn't rely on their tongues, but in Jae-sun's world it seemed like this was completely normal, and he had to trust her. After a few moments, Jae-sun pulled back, her tongue retracting as she gave him a quiet look of satisfaction. Your body is healing well, but there is still some stress. Your internal energy is not completely stable, she said, her voice soft. We will need more time to help you adjust. Seok-jin felt his heart race slightly at her words. What do you mean by internal energy? He asked, his voice curious but unsure. He had heard strange things about alien races, but nothing had prepared him for this. Jae-sun paused for a moment, as if deciding how to explain. In my species, we believe that the body is not just physical. There is an energy that flows through you, connecting your body, mind, and spirit. Your energy is currently unstable because of the trauma your body experienced from the crash. I am working to help it settle. It will take time. Seok-jin tried to process what she was saying. He had never thought of his body in such a way. He had always believed in science, in things that could be measured and studied. But this was different. Was it possible that there was something beyond the physical that could be healed? Was it possible that Jae-sun could help him not just heal physically, but also emotionally and mentally? He couldn't deny that there was something about her touch, her presence, that made him feel better, calmer, even in the midst of his confusion and pain. Her care seemed to go beyond just fixing his injuries. It felt like she was working to fix something deeper inside of him. Jae-sun turned and picked up another vial of the blue liquid. She held it in her hands, studying it for a moment before turning back to Seok-jin. I will give you more of the serum to help stabilize your energy, but there is another method I must use as well, she said. Seok-jin blinked, his curiosity piqued. What kind of method? Jae-sun looked at him with a mixture of understanding and something else. Something that made Seok-jin feel a little uneasy, though he couldn't quite place why. I will use my tongue once more. It is part of our healing process, a way to balance the energies within you. Seok-jin's heart skipped a beat. The idea of her using her tongue again made him feel strange, but he knew he had no other choice. She was the only one who could help him, and despite his discomfort, he trusted her. He nodded slowly. I understand, he said quietly. Jae-sun smiled, a gentle, almost sad smile before moving toward him. This time, when her tongue touched his skin, Seok-jin felt it more deeply than before. It wasn't just her touch. It was like the warmth spread through his entire body, settling into his very core. Her tongue flicked out and moved slowly over his skin, pausing at each spot as she read his temperature, his energy, his very being. Seok-jin felt his heartbeat slow, his body relax, and even his thoughts seemed to settle. He wasn't sure if it was the serum, the strange connection he felt with her, or something else, but it was like he was becoming part of something larger. The discomfort he had felt earlier started to fade, and he realized that whatever Jae-sun was doing, it was working. For the first time since the crash, Seok-jin felt at peace. He wasn't sure where this strange path was leading, but for the first time he didn't feel so alone. Seok-jin had been on the strange planet for nearly 2 weeks now. Time seemed to blur together in a haze of strange sensations and emotions. The crash, the pain, the fear. It all felt so distant now. Most of his injuries had healed thanks to Jae-sun's mysterious healing methods, but there was still a lingering feeling deep inside him. It wasn't the pain of his body. It was the discomfort of being so far from home, from everything he knew. But Jae-sun had been there. She had been there every day, checking on him, helping him, guiding him. He had come to rely on her presence, even if he didn't fully understand her methods. She was an alien, tall, powerful, covered in shimmering scales, but she had shown him kindness. And despite everything, that kindness had begun to make him feel something that he hadn't expected: hope. That afternoon, Seok-jin found himself walking through the halls of the medical station, the unfamiliar surroundings still feeling strange but less intimidating. Jae-sun had told him he needed to stretch his legs, that being confined to the medical room too long wasn't good for his body's healing. He had protested at first, feeling weak and unsure, but her calm insistence had convinced him otherwise. She was always so sure of herself, so confident in her actions. It made him feel safe. He walked slowly down the hall, observing the strange walls that curved and shifted, almost as if the building was alive. It was nothing like anything he had ever seen before. The walls were smooth and shiny, with patterns of light that danced across them, creating shifting images that seemed to tell stories of their own. The station was like its own world, separate from the planet outside. Seok-jin stopped in front of a large window, looking out at the alien world below. He could see the towering mountains in the distance, their peaks disappearing into the thick clouds above. The landscape was wild and untamed, the colors strange and vibrant, unlike anything he had ever seen on Earth. He had always been taught to fear the unknown, to keep a safe distance from things he didn't understand. But now, standing in front of the window, he couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder. He heard footsteps behind him and turned to find Jae-sun approaching. She moved silently, her forearms gliding smoothly by her sides. She was always so graceful, like she belonged to the world in a way that Seok-jin never would. She was a part of this strange place, this alien world, and yet she had taken him in. She had cared for him. "How are you feeling?" Jae-sun asked, her voice as soft and calm as ever. Her violet eyes studied him with that familiar intensity, as if she were reading something inside of him that he couldn't see. Seok-jin hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to respond. He had felt better, physically. The aches and pains had faded and his energy had returned. But emotionally, he still felt a little lost. "I'm better, I guess," he said slowly. "But I don't know what to do now. I don't know what happens next." Jae-sun studied him quietly, her expression unreadable. "You do not have to know everything. You are healing, and that is all that matters right now." Her words were simple, but there was a depth to them that Seok-jin couldn't ignore. She spoke as though healing wasn't just about the body, but about something deeper, something that went beyond just fixing physical injuries. Her methods, her way of treating him, were so different from anything he had ever known. Yet, it was clear that they worked. Jae-sun stepped closer to him, and Seok-jin couldn't help but feel a slight nervousness. It wasn't fear. It was something else. Something he couldn't quite explain. She had been taking care of him, but sometimes he wondered if there was more to it than that. He didn't know if he was imagining things, but it felt like she was getting closer to him in ways that went beyond just healing. "You are still uncertain," Jae-sun said, her voice barely above a whisper. She took another step closer, her tall form casting a shadow over him. "It is normal to feel lost when you are so far from your home, but you do not need to be alone." Seok-jin looked up at her, her purple eyes reflecting a deep understanding. I don't want to be alone," he said quietly, almost as if he were confessing something. He hadn't meant to say it out loud, but the words had slipped out before he could stop them. He had been feeling that way for so long, and Jae-sun seemed to understand. Jae-sun's expression softened. She placed a hand gently on his shoulder, her touch warm and reassuring. Her scales, smooth and glimmering in the light, sent a wave of calm through him. He wasn't sure what it was about her touch, but it felt like she was more than just a healer. She was a comfort, something he hadn't known he needed. "You are not alone," she said again, her voice gentle. "You are safe here. You will heal. I will help you." Seok-jin nodded, grateful for her words, though he wasn't sure he fully understood what she meant. But her presence, the way she spoke to him, the way she touched him, it made him feel like he could trust her, and for now, that was enough. Later that day, after they had spent some time talking and resting, Jae-sun returned to her usual routine of checking his temperature and making sure his body was still healing properly. As usual, she used her tongue, her smooth, long tongue that always seemed to leave a lingering warmth wherever it touched his skin. Each time she did this, Seok-jin felt an odd sense of connection to her, like she wasn't just checking his body, but something deeper. It was hard to explain, but the more she healed him, the more he felt as though she was doing something beyond just fixing his physical wounds. She was helping him heal in a way that was more than just medical. After their usual session, Jae-sun gave him a rare smile, a smile that seemed to show something beyond just kindness. There was a depth to it, something Seok-jin couldn't quite place. It made him feel both comforted and, at the same time, a little uneasy. He wasn't sure why, but something about the way she looked at him made his heart race. He had never been in a situation like this before. He had never relied on anyone so completely, and it was both comforting and confusing at the same time. "You will be fine," Jae-sun said, her voice calm. "I am here to help you. Your healing will continue, and soon you will be strong again. You will be ready for whatever comes next." Seok-jin didn't say anything right away. He wasn't sure what would come next, but the more time he spent with Jae-sun, the more he felt like he could face whatever challenges lay ahead. For now, all that mattered was that he wasn't alone, and for the first time in a long while, that was enough. The days seemed to stretch on endlessly for Seok-jin, but his body was healing at an incredible pace. Each day, Jae-sun's careful attention and unique healing methods had made him feel better. He was stronger than he had been when he first woke up, still groggy from the crash, and his wounds had all but disappeared. Yet, even though his body was recovering, his mind was still full of questions and feelings he couldn't quite understand. He was still adjusting to being so far from home. He missed his planet, his family, and his life. He had never imagined being stranded on an alien world. But at the same time, there was something about this place, something about Jae-sun, that kept him from feeling completely hopeless. The more time he spent with her, the more he began to feel an unexpected bond. It wasn't just about being cared for, it was something deeper. Jae-sun had been everything to him during his recovery. She was not just a healer, but someone who seemed to understand him in ways he didn't understand himself. Her touch, her voice, her presence, it was all a source of comfort to him. But as much as Seok-jin tried to push it away, he couldn't ignore the growing feeling inside him. Every time she checked his body temperature with her tongue, every time she touched him, There was something inside him that reacted, something beyond just gratitude. He wasn't sure if it was the isolation, the stress of being so far from Earth, or something about Jae-sun herself, but it was becoming harder to ignore the strange way his body responded to her. It wasn't just the physical healing. There was something else, something unspoken, that was starting to grow between them. One evening, as the light outside the station dimmed, Seok-jin found himself sitting in the common room, gazing out the window. The strange sky of this alien world was growing darker, the stars beginning to twinkle above. There was something peaceful about it, but also something unsettling. He couldn't quite explain it. His mind felt heavy, full of thoughts he didn't know how to deal with. Jae-sun entered the room quietly, as she always did. She moved with a grace that almost seemed unnatural, her forearms swaying gently with each step. She looked at him for a moment before speaking. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant, as if she were choosing her words carefully. "How are you feeling today, Seok-jin?" she asked, her violet eyes studying him intently. Seok-jin turned to face her, trying to keep his emotions in check. "I feel better," he said, his voice more certain than he felt. "But I still don't know what's going to happen next. I'm not sure where I fit in all of this." Jae-sun nodded, stepping closer to him. "It's understandable, you have been through a lot. But remember, you are not alone in this. You are here with me, and I will help you find your place in this world." Her words were kind, but they didn't fully settle the anxiety that churned in Seok-jin's chest. He had heard her say something similar before, but he wasn't sure if he truly understood what she meant. What was he supposed to do now? His life had been so simple before, the work, the people, the routines. But now everything was uncertain. Jae-sun seemed to sense his unease. She stepped closer, her presence calming, but there was something more to the way she looked at him now. There was a softness in her eyes, a warmth that made Seok-jin's heart beat faster. She reached out and gently placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch delicate and reassuring. "You don't have to know everything, Seok-jin," she said quietly. "Sometimes all you need is to be present in the moment. Trust in yourself and in the healing process." Seok-jin felt the weight of her words, but the touch of her hand made him feel something more. It wasn't just comfort. It was something deeper. He could feel her warmth, her care, and it made something inside him stir. He had spent his whole life focused on logic, on understanding the world through science and facts. But now, there was something more intangible at play. He wasn't sure how to explain it, but he felt an unspoken connection with her, something that he couldn't push away. He sighed, feeling a mix of confusion and longing. "I don't know how to say this, but I feel like I'm starting to understand you better. But at the same time, I feel lost." Jae-sun studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then she smiled, though it was faint and almost sad. "You are not alone in feeling this way, Seok-jin. Change is difficult, especially when you are far from everything you know. But you must understand that this journey is as much about finding yourself as it is about healing." Her words were soothing, but there was still something unresolved inside him. He wanted to ask her more questions, wanted to know what she really meant, but at the same time he wasn't sure he was ready for the answers. There was so much he didn't understand about her, about this planet, and about his own feelings. The moment stretched on in silence, both of them standing there, lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Seok-jin couldn't hold it in anymore. "Jae-sun, why do you keep using your tongue to check my temperature? It's not like anything I've ever experienced before. Why does it feel so personal?" Jae-sun blinked, as if surprised by the question. She tilted her head slightly, considering his words before speaking. "In my species, the tongue is not just a tool for eating or speaking," she explained. "It is an important part of our healing process. It allows us to connect with another being on a deeper level. It is not just about reading the body's temperature. It is about understanding the energy that flows within." Seok-jin listened, carefully, his mind trying to wrap around her explanation. "So, it's more than just a medical check?" Jae-sun nodded slowly. "Yes. It is a way for me to connect with you, to help you heal in ways that go beyond your body. It is about balance, about energy, and about trust. Her words left him speechless. He hadn't thought of it that way. He had assumed it was just a strange alien method, but now it seemed like there was more to it, something deeper. He wasn't sure if he was ready to fully understand all of it, but the thought that Jason's actions were meant to help him heal on a more profound level made him feel a sense of peace. I see, Seokjin said quietly, looking down at the floor for a moment to gather his thoughts. I guess I've never really thought about it that way. I don't know what I'm feeling, but I know that I trust you. Jae-sun's eyes softened, and she gave him a small, knowing smile. You are not alone in your confusion, Seokjin. Healing takes time, and sometimes the healing of the body and the mind happen in ways we do not understand. Seokjin nodded, his heart feeling both heavy and light at the same time. He still had many questions, still had doubts, but in that moment, he knew one thing for sure: he wasn't alone. And as long as Jae-sun was there, he felt like maybe he could find his way through this strange alien world. Seokjin woke up to the soft hum of the station. The familiar sounds of the walls shifting and the faint rustle of machinery were strangely comforting. The past few weeks had been a blur of strange sensations, alien landscapes, and, most of all, Jae-sun's constant care. He had grown accustomed to her presence in his life. At first, he had felt like an outsider in her world, but now he was starting to see things differently. She had helped him heal physically, yes. But more than that, she had shown him a different way of looking at the world. He stood up slowly, stretching his arms as he moved towards the window. The alien world outside was as beautiful and mysterious as ever. The mountains in the distance were shrouded in mist, their peaks lost in the clouds, and the sky above was a deep purple, dotted with stars he had never seen before. Seokjin had begun to appreciate the strangeness of it all. The thought of returning to Earth seemed less urgent now, though he still longed for the comfort of home. There was something about this place that made him feel both out of place and strangely at peace. As he gazed out the window, he heard a soft knock on the door. He turned and saw Jae-sun standing in the doorway, her tall form framed by the soft light from the hallway. She was always so graceful, so calm. Today she looked a little different. There was something more in her eyes, something Seokjin couldn't quite place. Good morning, Seokjin, she said, her voice calm as usual, but with a hint of something else. How are you feeling today? Seokjin turned to face her, feeling a little lighter than usual. I'm feeling better, he said, offering her a small smile. I think the worst is over, but I've been thinking a lot lately. Jae-sun raised an eyebrow, her violet eyes narrowing slightly in curiosity. What have you been thinking about? Seokjin hesitated. He wasn't sure how to put it into words. He had spent so much time focusing on healing, on surviving, that he hadn't really taken the time to consider what had been happening between them. But now, as he looked at Jae-sun, he couldn't ignore the connection that had grown between them. It wasn't just about being healed. It was about something deeper, something more personal. I've been thinking about us, Seokjin said, his voice quiet. I don't know if I understand it all, but I know that I've come to rely on you. I trust you, Jae-sun, more than I thought I would. Jae-sun's expression softened, though she didn't speak right away. She stepped into the room, closing the door behind her, and moved toward him slowly. Her movements were fluid, graceful, like a dance. Seokjin watched her, a mix of awe and confusion building inside him. I've noticed, Jae-sun said after a long pause. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant. You've changed, Seokjin, not just in body but in heart and mind as well. Seokjin felt a heat rise in his cheeks. He wasn't sure if he was ready to hear more, but there was something in the way Jae-sun spoke that made him feel like he couldn't turn away. She was different from anyone he had ever known. The way she cared for him, the way she looked at him. It was all so overwhelming. I've never been so far from home before, Seok-jin said, his voice tinged with uncertainty. And I've never been cared for the way you've cared for me. I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like I'm starting to depend on you in ways that, well, I didn't expect. Jae-soon stood in front of him now, so close that Seok-jin could feel the warmth radiating from her. She placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch gentle but firm. Dependence is not weakness, Seok-jin, she said softly. It is natural to rely on others when you are in need. You have been through so much, it is okay to need someone. Her words felt like a comfort, yet they made Seok-jin's heart race. He had spent so much time thinking he had to be strong, on his own, but now in this alien world he was learning that strength could come from others. Jae-soon was teaching him that, and the realization felt both freeing and terrifying. Seok-jin's mind was spinning. He had never imagined he would feel this way on a foreign world, surrounded by an alien species, but Jae-soon had made him feel safe, something he hadn't realized he needed. And yet there was still so much he didn't understand. He could feel the pull between them, the unspoken connection, but he didn't know what to do with it. I don't know what's happening between us, Jae-sun, he said, his voice almost a whisper, but I feel something more than just gratitude. I don't know if it's right or if it's just because I'm far from home, but I can't ignore it. Jae-sun's gaze softened further, and she stepped even closer. Her hands reached up, gently cupping his face. Her scales shimmered softly in the light, and her touch was warm, soothing. There is nothing wrong with what you feel, she said, her voice low and tender. It is not unusual for beings from different worlds to form connections. We are not so different, Seok-jin. We both seek comfort, safety, and understanding. Seok-jin felt his heart race as he looked into her eyes. For a moment, the world outside the station seemed to disappear. It was just him and Jae-sun standing in this strange, quiet space between them. He wasn't sure what would come next, but for the first time since he had crashed on this alien planet, he felt like he wasn't alone. He didn't have all the answers, and maybe he never would, but with Jae-sun by his side, he felt like he could face whatever came next. He reached out, his hand trembling slightly as he touched her arm. I don't know what to say, but I'm glad I'm here with you. I don't know what's next for me, but I want to find out with you. Jae-sun smiled then, a soft and genuine smile that seemed to warm the entire room. I will be here. Seok-jin, whatever you choose, whatever path you take, I will be by your side. And in that moment, Seok-jin knew that no matter what happened next, he would not face it alone. Jae-sun had become more than just his healer. She had become a part of his journey, and in a way, his guide. The connection between them was something neither of them fully understood, but it was something they both knew was real. With a deep breath, Seok-jin stepped back, feeling a weight lift off his chest. It wasn't about answers anymore. It was about trusting the process, trusting Jae-sun and trusting himself. Whatever this strange world had in store for him, he was ready to face it. I think I'm ready, he said quietly, ready to move forward, ready to see where this goes. Jae-sun's smile widened and she nodded. Then, let us begin this next step, Seok-jin. And so, with that, Seok-jin's journey on this strange world continued, not alone, but with someone who had become more than just a healer. Jae-sun was now a companion, a guide, and perhaps something more. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, Seok-jin felt like it was worth facing.